The vibration of my phone against the solid oak surface of the dining table didn't just break the silence, it shattered the illusion of my entire life, though I didn't know it the second it happened. It was a short, sharp buzz, a single notification that sounded indistinguishable from a weather alert or a spam email, yet it carried the weight of 18 years of marriage collapsing into a singularity of absolute bullshit. I looked down at the screen, the blue light illuminating the rim of my wine glass. The message was from Monica. It was simple, concise, and under normal circumstances, completely mundane. Helping Dad with his taxes. I'll be left home late. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. I stared at the words, reading them once, then twice, letting the syntax settle in my brain like a cold stone in a churning stomach. Helping Dad with his taxes. It was a plausible excuse, theoretically. It was tax season, after all. Monica had always been the one to handle the paperwork in the family. She was organized, meticulous, the kind of woman who color-coded her calendar and had a specific slot for everything, including, apparently, betrayal. The problem with this perfectly crafted, dutiful daughter text message was the physical reality sitting directly across from me. I looked up from the phone. Sitting there, methodically sawing into a piece of rosemary roasted chicken with the precision of a retired surgeon, was Frank, Monica's father. My father-in-law, the very man she was supposedly helping at this exact moment, presumably across town at his condo, surrounded by W-2s and receipts. "This chicken is excellent, Glenn," Frank said, pausing to wipe a speck of grease from his chin with a linen napkin. He didn't look up, just focused on the meal, completely oblivious to the fact that his existence in my dining room had just turned his daughter into a liar. "Thanks, Frank," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow, distant, like I was speaking from the bottom of a well. I used a new brine, soaked it for 24 hours. "Well, it paid off," he grunted, taking a sip of the Cabernet I'd opened for us. "Moist. Most people dry out the breast meat. You've got a knack for this." I watched him chew. I watched the clock on the wall tick. I looked back at the phone. The timestamp read 7:12 p.m. The hypocrisy was so thick I could practically taste it, metallic and bitter, overpowering the rosemary. It's funny how the brain processes trauma in real time. You don't scream, you don't flip the table, you just freeze, and your mind starts cataloging data points with the cold efficiency of a forensic accountant. I'm sharing this story because I know I'm not the only guy who has sat at a table and realized his life was a lie. If you're reading or listening to this and you've ever felt that gut check, take a second to subscribe or follow, because honestly, knowing there are people out there who get it is the only thing motivating the team to keep putting these stories down on paper. We need to stick together. Anyway, back to the dinner table. "So," I said, forcing a casual tone that felt like swallowing razor blades, "have you heard from Monica today?" Frank swallowed, took another sip of wine, and shrugged. "Not since Tuesday. She called to ask about my blood pressure medication." "Why, she working late again?" "Something like that," I murmured. I picked up the bottle and topped off his glass, my hand steady despite the adrenaline dumping into my bloodstream. "She sent a text, said she's busy." "Busy girl," Frank nodded, oblivious. "She gets that from her mother. Never could sit still. Always had to be fixing something, organizing something, good work ethic." I almost laughed. A dark, barking laugh was clawing its way up my throat. Good work ethic. That was one way to put it. I unlocked my phone and looked at the text again. Helping Dad with his taxes, it was such a specific lie. That was the thing about Monica. She didn't just lie, she crafted narratives. She added details that made things undeniable. If she had just said working late, I might have checked her office location. But helping Dad invoked family duty. It was designed to make me feel like a jerk for even questioning it. Who gets mad at a wife helping her elderly father with the IRS? "You do your taxes yet, Frank?" I asked, slicing into my own potato. He chuckled. "Done in February, Glenn. You know me. I walked everything down to H&R Block the day I got my forms. I don't mess around with the government." "Right," I said. "Right. You've been going to the same guy for 20 years. 25, Barry. Good man. Keeps me out of jail." I nodded slowly. The trap was set, not by me, but by her. She had walked right into it, blindfolded by her own arrogance. She thought she was the smartest person in the room, the grandmaster of this little chess game she didn't even know I was playing. But looking at Frank, innocent and enjoying his chicken, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sad. I wasn't heartbroken. Not yet. I was excited. It was a cold, reptilian excitement, the kind you get when you finally figure out the solution to a puzzle that's been bothering you for months. The ambiguity was gone. The gaslighting, the months of "you're paranoid, Glenn, you're being suffocating, Glenn," it all evaporated. I held the truth in my hand, glowing on an OLED screen. I looked at Frank again. "You know, I was thinking we should catch up more often. I feel like I haven't really talked to you in months." "I'd like that," Frank smiled. "I get lonely in that condo. It's nice to be around family." "Yeah," I said, gripping my steak knife a little tighter. "Family is everything. In fact, why don't we snap a picture, document the occasion?" "A picture?" Frank looked confused. "I've got barbecue sauce on my lip." "It's fine," I said, standing up. "It's just for memory's sake." But I didn't take the picture yet. I needed to let her dig the hole deeper. I needed to see how far she would go, because the lie about the taxes wasn't the crime. It was the cover-up for the crime. And I intended to find out exactly what she was covering up, detail by excruciating detail. I sat back down. "Actually, let's wait for dessert," I said. "I want to hear more about this Barry guy at H&R Block. Sounds like a fascinating character." Frank launched into a story about a deduction he missed in 1998, and I sat there smiling, nodding, while my world burned down around me. The silence in the house, usually peaceful, now felt heavy, charged with the static electricity of an approaching storm. She was out there, somewhere, thinking she was safe, thinking I was at home, heating up leftovers, watching the game, being the dumb, reliable husband she thought she'd broken years ago. She had no idea that the man she married had left the building, replaced by someone who was currently calculating the exact blast radius of the bomb she just armed. The text message at dinner wasn't the first red flag. It was just the first one that carried a smoking gun. The suspicion hadn't hit me all at once like a thunderclap. It was more like a slow accumulation of dust in an abandoned room, layer upon layer of small incongruous details that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture of absolute deceit. Flashback to 2 months prior. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday is trash night, and I was emptying the bins in the master bathroom. Monica had thrown her heavy winter coat over the banister earlier that evening, complaining about the sleet. As I walked past it, the coat slipped. Being the creature of habit that I am, I picked it up to hang it properly in the closet. That's when I felt it, a hard plastic rectangle in the side pocket. I pulled it out. A key card, not a credit card, not a gift card, but a generic magnetic strip hotel key card. It was white with a gray arrow, no logo, which usually means it's either a very cheap motel or a boutique place that tries too hard to be minimalist. "Monica," I had called out, standing in the hallway. She popped her head out of the bedroom, toothbrush in her mouth. "Hmm? What's this?" I held up the card. She didn't flinch, not even a blink. Her heart rate probably didn't even spike. She walked over, took it from my hand, and tossed it onto the entry table. "Oh, that. Ugh, annoying. It's from the conference in Chicago last month. I must have left it in my pocket. I keep forgetting to throw it out." It was a perfect lie. She had been to a conference in Chicago. But the card looked new. The magnetic strip wasn't scratched. And more importantly, Monica was obsessive about clearing her pockets. She once lectured me for 20 minutes because I left a gum wrapper in my jeans before putting them in the hamper. But I let it go. Why? Because you want to believe that your wife of nearly 2 decades isn't capable of looking you in the eye and lying while foaming with mint toothpaste. Then came the perfume. 3 weeks later, I came home early from the firm. Monica wasn't there, but the bathroom smelled like a Sephora explosion. Not her usual scent. She's worn Chanel Mademoiselle since 2005. This was different, muskier, heavier, something with vanilla and patchouli. It smelled like the kind of perfume you wear when you want to be noticed in a dark bar, not the kind you wear to a quarterly budget meeting. When she got home, the smell was gone, scrubbed away. She smelled like soap. Too much soap. Who takes a shower at 4 p.m. on a Thursday before coming home? "Jim," she said, seeing me sniff the air, "did a spin class. Sweated like a pig." "I didn't see your gym bag in the car," I noted. "Left it in the trunk," she said, breezing past me to the kitchen. God, I'm starving. Make me a grilled cheese, Mirish. I made the grilled cheese, but while the bread was browning in the pan, I walked out to the garage. I opened her trunk. It was empty. No gym bag, no sweaty towel, just the spare tire and an umbrella. I went back inside and flipped the sandwich. You should bring that bag in. It's going to freeze out there. I will later, she said, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. She didn't care. She was getting sloppy because I was getting predictable. I was the furniture. I was the appliance that made grilled cheese and paid the mortgage. Furniture doesn't investigate. The final straw before the dinner with Frank was the smartwatch. We were watching a movie, some rom-com she picked. Her arm was resting on the sofa back between us. Her watch lit up, a notification. Ryan, 10 p.m. works, room 314. It was on the screen for maybe 2 seconds. She snatched her arm back as if she'd been burned, covering the watch face with her other hand. Who's Ryan? I asked, keeping my eyes on the TV. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but I kept my voice flat. Dead. Work, she said quickly. Too quickly. Guy. Ryan from IT. We're doing a system migration tonight. He's scheduling the server downtime. Room 314, I asked. She laughed, a nervous, tittering sound that grated on my nerves. Server room. It's the code for the server room. God, you're nosy tonight. Just asking, I said. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to her, listening to her breathing, wondering if she was dreaming of Ryan from IT and his room 314. I realized then that confrontation was useless. If I accused her, she'd gaslight me. She'd say I was crazy, paranoid, controlling. She'd delete the text, wipe the history, and I'd be the villain. No, I needed proof. Irrefutable, concrete, devastating proof. The next day, I added a line to our shared family plan, a child safety feature I told the carrier was for a non-existent niece staying with us. It allowed me to see call logs and location pings for all devices on the account. I didn't tell her, I just let it run in the background, a silent auditor of her life. The data started coming in. She wasn't at the gym. She wasn't at the office late. Her errands on Saturday mornings followed a pattern. A residential area on the north side, a specific coffee shop, and a hotel near the interstate, the Marriott, the same Marriott where I found a specific object during a trunk inspection while she was in the shower. Tucked under the spare tire well, wrapped in a fast food napkin, was a lanyard, a cheap blue nylon lanyard with a plastic ID holder. Inside was a gym membership card for Ironclad Fitness. The name on the card? Ryan Miller. She must have grabbed it by mistake, or he left it in her car, and she panicked and hid it. It wasn't the evidence of the affair itself, but it was the link. Ryan wasn't IT. Ryan was a personal trainer. I put the lanyard back exactly where I found it. I didn't say a word. I went back inside, kissed her on the forehead, and told her dinner was ready. That was the moment the hurt stopped and the strategy began. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a hunter. And I was going to wait until she walked right into the line of fire. Watching your wife prepare for a date with another man is a unique form of torture, one that requires a level of dissociation I didn't know I possessed. It became a ritual, a macabre theater production where I played the role of the oblivious audience, and she played the starlet preparing for her big scene. It started on a Friday, 3 weeks before the dinner with Frank. Monica came home from work buzzing with a frantic energy. She was exhausted, she claimed, but her eyes were wide, her pupils dilated. She moved through the house like a hummingbird, unable to land. I'm going to Sarah's tonight, she announced, standing in the kitchen, aggressively chopping a cucumber for a salad she wouldn't eat. Sarah was her sister. She's having a meltdown about her kids, needs a girls' night, wine, crying, the works. I might crash there if it gets late. Okay, I said, leaning against the counter, sipping my coffee. Give her my best. Is everything okay with the boys? Oh, teenagers. She waved the knife dismissively. Just drama. I need to go shower. I watched her ascend the stairs. 20 minutes later, the transformation began. I sat in the living room, ostensibly reading a book, but my senses were tuned to the frequency of the master bedroom upstairs. I heard the hairdryer, not the quick blast she used for work, but the long, meticulous styling session. I smelled the hairspray drifting down the vents. Then came the perfume. Not the office scent, the other scent, the Ryan scent. She came down the stairs an hour later, and I almost dropped my book. She was wearing a dress I had never seen before, a sleek black number that hugged curves she usually hid under oversized blazers. It was cut low in the back, high in the hem. She was wearing heels, stiletto pumps that clicked sharply on the hardwood. Monica complained about heels. She said they hurt her back. Yet here she was, strapped into 4-inch torture devices, looking like $1,000,000. Wow, I said, keeping my face neutral. Sarah's house has a dress code? She froze for a millisecond, her hand hovering over her purse. What? No, I haven't worn this in ages. Thought I'd dust it off. Make myself feel good, you know? Sarah wants to go to that wine bar downtown, so I didn't want to look like a slob. You look great, I said. New purse? It was a small designer clutch. Cream leather. Definitely not cheap. This? She looked at it as if she'd just discovered it in her hand. Oh, I got this at TJ Maxx on clearance like a year ago. Just never used it. It was a lie. I manage our finances. I see every TJ Maxx charge. This was a gift, probably from Ryan, probably paid for with the money he saved by not paying for hotel rooms, since my wife seemed to be footing that bill. Have fun, I said. Drive safe? I will. Don't wait up. She kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold, sticky with expensive gloss. She smelled like vanilla and lies. As soon as the front door clicked shut and I heard her car back out of the driveway, I picked up my phone. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. Then I dialed Sarah's number. Hey, Glenn, Sarah answered on the second ring. The background noise was loud. Cartoon noises, kids shouting. Definitely not a wine bar. Hey, Sarah, I said, keeping my voice light. Just calling to check in. Monica said you were having a rough time with the boys. What? Sarah laughed, a confused, genuine sound. Rough time? No, we're watching The Incredibles for the 50th time. Why? Is Monica okay? Oh, you know Monica, I improvised smoothly. She must have gotten her days mixed up. She thought you guys had plans tonight. She probably just went shopping instead. Weird, Sarah said. No, I haven't talked to her since Sunday. Tell her to call me, though. Will do. Enjoy the movie. I hung up. The silence in the house was deafening. She wasn't at Sarah's. She wasn't confused. She was with him. I walked to the window and stared out at the empty street. Rage is a funny thing. At first, it's hot, volcanic, blinding. But then, if you let it sit, it cools down. It hardens into something sharp and brittle like obsidian. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I looked old, tired, but in my eyes there was something new. A spark of malice. I didn't call her. I didn't text her asking where she was. I didn't blow up her phone. I went to the kitchen, opened my calendar, and looked at the date. Next Friday. That was the night. I picked up the phone again and dialed Frank. Frank, hey, it's Glenn. Glenn? Everything okay? Yeah, everything's great, I said, watching a moth beat its wings against the porch light. Listen, I was wondering if you wanted to come over for dinner next Friday. I'm making that roast chicken you like. Oh, that sounds lovely, Frank said. Monica will be there? Actually, I said, choosing my words with surgical precision, I think she might be working late that night. But she's been so stressed lately, I didn't want to bother her with hosting. Just a guy's night. We can catch up, drink some wine. If she makes it home, she makes it home. Sounds perfect, Frank said. I'll bring the wine. Great, I said. See you then. I hung up and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who just set a bear trap and covered it with leaves. She thought she was the one with the secret life. She thought she was the one orchestrating the evenings, the excuses, the locations. She had no idea that I was about to become the director of her reality. I turned off the lights, went upstairs, and lay in bed, waiting for the sound of her car, rehearsing the lines I would say when she crept in at 2 a.m., smelling of him. I wouldn't say a word about it. I would just ask if Sarah was feeling better. The following Friday arrived with the heavy, inevitable momentum of a freight train. The atmosphere in the house was strange all week, strained, brittle. Monica had been floaty, distant, spending hours on her phone in the bathroom with the fan running. I had been the model husband, polite, helpful, completely opaque. I packed her lunch. I asked about her day. I didn't blink. When Friday evening came, the stage was set. I had told Monica in the morning that I would be working in the garage that night, tinkering with the mower. I created a vacuum, a space for her to fill with a lie. I knew she wouldn't pass up the opportunity. Ryan, or whatever his schedule was, seemed to operate on Fridays. At 5:30 p.m., she called. "Hey," she said. Her voice was tight, breathless. "Listen, Glenn, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be home for dinner." "Oh?" I asked, putting the chicken into the oven. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, it's just Dad called." I paused. I looked at the table where I had already set 2 places. "Your dad?" "Yeah, he's really struggling with his taxes, Glenn. He sounds so confused. I think he's panicked about the deadline. I need to go over there and help him sort through his receipts. You know how he gets with paperwork." "I do," I said. "He hates the government." "Exactly." She let out a relieved sigh. "So I'm going to head straight there from the office. It might take a while. Don't wait up." "You're a good daughter, Monica," I said. The venom in my voice was so subtle it could have passed for admiration. "Tell Frank I said hello." "I will. Love you." "Love you too." Click. I stood there for a moment, holding the phone, marveling at the audacity. It wasn't just a lie, it was a lazy lie. She was recycling family members now. She was using the man who raised her as a shield for her infidelity. The doorbell rang at 6 o'clock p.m. sharp. Frank stood there, holding a bottle of Merlot, looking fresh and cheerful. "Glenn, smells amazing already." "Come in, Frank, right on time." We settled in, we drank, we ate, and then at 7:12 p.m. the text arrived, the one confirming the lie in writing. "Helping Dad with taxes. Home late." I looked at Frank. We had just finished the main course, the plates were cleared, we were leaning back, digesting. "Taxes," Frank repeated, staring at me after I read the text aloud, omitting the "love you" part. "I haven't done my own taxes since the Clinton administration." I swirled my wine. "That's what she said. Helping Dad with taxes." Frank frowned, his bushy eyebrows knitting together. He looked at his watch. "But I'm here. She knows I'm here?" "No," I said softly. "She thinks I'm in the garage." "She thinks you're at your condo." Frank was a simple man, but he wasn't stupid. I watched the realization wash over him. It started as confusion, morphed into denial, and then settled into a deep, bruised hurt. "Where is she, Glenn?" "I don't know, Frank, but I know where she isn't." I picked up my phone. "Let's find out how committed she is to this story." I opened the camera app. I framed the shot carefully. In the foreground, the half-empty bottle of Merlot and the remnants of the roast chicken. In the background, Frank, looking confused and slightly heartbroken, sitting at my dining table. I didn't add a caption. I didn't write "caught you" or "where are you." I didn't add an angry emoji. I just selected the image and hit send. The little whoosh sound of the message sending was the loudest thing in the room. "What did you do?" Frank asked, his voice trembling slightly. "I just sent her a status update," I said, setting the phone down face up. We waited. The silence stretched. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The 3 dancing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. She was typing. She was deleting. She was panicking. Then nothing. No reply. "She's not texting back," Frank whispered. "No," I said, leaning forward, my eyes locked on the front door. "She's not going to text, she's going to run." I knew exactly what was happening. She was staring at that photo. Her brain was trying to reconcile the lie she just told with the reality on her screen. She couldn't gaslight a photograph. She couldn't talk her way out of her father sitting in her kitchen while she claimed to be at his house. The cognitive dissonance was likely causing a full system crash. "She'll be here in 20 minutes, I predicted. "She's probably scrambling to pay the bill right now. Or maybe she's just throwing her clothes back on." Frank flinched at that. "Glenn, I'm sorry, Frank," I said, and I genuinely meant it. "I didn't want to drag you into this, but I needed you to see it." "If I told you, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have defended her." Frank looked down at his hands. "Yeah, I would have." "Now we wait," I said. "Keep your phone on the table. Don't answer if she calls." The phone didn't ring. She knew better. She knew the game was up, at least the current round. Now she was coming to do damage control. She was coming to spin, but she had no idea that I wasn't just holding a photo. I was holding the receipts. I was holding the call logs. I was holding the ghost of her integrity. I poured us both another glass of wine. "To taxes," I said, raising my glass. Frank didn't toast. He just stared at the door, looking like a man waiting for the executioner to arrive. The 20 minutes I predicted turned into 18. I knew she was speeding. I knew she was running red lights. The desperation would be making her reckless. Frank and I sat in the living room now. I had deliberately positioned us so we were facing the front door. The lights were dimmed, but not off. It wasn't an ambush in the dark. It was a stage, lit for the final act. We heard the car first, the aggressive rev of the engine as she turned into the driveway, then the screech of tires braking too hard. A car door slammed, not closed, slammed. Footsteps hurried up the walkway, the staccato click of heels on concrete. The key scratched against the lock. She fumbled. She was shaking. The door swung open, hitting the stopper with a thud. Monica stood there. She was wearing the Sarah dress, the black one. Her hair was slightly disheveled, flyaways escaping the bun she must have hastily tied. Her chest was heaving. Her face was a mask of sheer, unadulterated terror. She saw us. She saw me, sitting in my armchair, legs crossed, wine glass in hand. She saw her father, Frank, sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands, looking at the floor. She froze. The color drained from her face so fast it looked like a special effect. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "Well, what's this?" she stammered. Her voice was an octave higher than usual. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I took a slow sip of wine. "We were just finishing up your father's taxes, Monica. Or, I thought we were. Turns out he didn't bring his W-2s. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. She looked at Frank. "Dad, Frank looked up. His eyes were wet. He looked old. "Done with who, Monica? What taxes? I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. You told Glenn you were with me?" She took a step back, her hand gripping the doorframe for support. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, looking for a lie, looking for anything to grab onto. It was a joke," she blurted out. It was pathetic. It was desperate. I was planning a surprise. For your birthday, Dad, I was out buying gifts and I didn't want you to know, so I used the tax thing as a cover. "My birthday is in October, Monica," Frank said. His voice was flat, dead. "It's March." "I know. I'm planning ahead. A big party. She trailed off. She knew how stupid it sounded. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, switching tactics from denial to manipulation. "Glenn, why are you doing this? Why are you staring at me like that? You're scaring me. You're being weird." "I'm being weird?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "I'm not the one standing in the doorway in a cocktail dress, smelling like men's cologne and panic, lying about my whereabouts to my husband and father." She instinctively crossed her arms, trying to cover the dress. "I don't smell like cologne. You're paranoid. You've always been paranoid. I was at the mall. I was shopping." "The mall closes at 9, Monica," I said calmly. "It's 9:30, and you texted me at 7:12 saying you were currently helping Dad." "I mixed up the texts," she shouted, her voice cracking. "God, you're so controlling. I can't believe you dragged my father into your little psychotic break." She was fighting hard. I had to give her credit. She was going down swinging, but she was fighting a war she had already lost. "Frank," I said, not taking my eyes off her, "did you know Monica has a keen interest in yoga lately?" "Yoga?" Frank looked confused. "Shut up, Glenn," Monica hissed. Her eyes went wide. Real fear now. Not just caught in a lie fear, but exposure fear. "She's been taking private lessons," I continued, my voice smooth as silk. "Very expensive private lessons with a trainer named Ryan." "Stop it," she screamed. She stepped fully into the room and slammed the door behind her. "You don't know what you're talking about. He's just a friend, a consultant." "A consultant who requires hotel rooms at the Marriott to discuss fitness strategies?" I asked. The silence that followed was absolute. It sucked the air out of the room. Monica looked like she had been punched in the gut. Her jaw went slack. Her hands dropped to her sides. Frank made a sound, a low, pained groan. He stood up, shaky on his legs. He looked at his daughter, really looked at her, seeing the stranger she had become. "Is it true?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Monica, tell me he's lying. Tell me my daughter isn't a cheat and a liar." She looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes, angry, frustrated tears. "Dad, it's complicated. You don't understand. Glenn, he's been distant. He works all the time. I was lonely. I just wanted someone to talk to." "So you talked to him at the Marriott?" Frank asked. The sarcasm in his voice was hereditary. I could see where I got along with him so well. "I didn't sleep with him," she lied. It was reflexive. "We just talked. We met for drinks." I stood up. "I think I need to show you something, Frank. Monica, why don't you sit down? You look like you're about to faint." I didn't wait for her to answer. I turned and walked toward my study. I could feel her eyes burning into my back. She hadn't expected the calm. She expected screaming. She expected a fight she could manipulate with tears and victimhood. She didn't know how to fight silence and facts. I heard her sob behind me, a choked, ugly sound. But I didn't stop. The emotional explosion had happened, but not for me. I was just the bomb squad coming in to sweep up the debris. I walked into the study, and the air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. This was my domain, the sanctuary where I managed the architecture of our lives, the mortgage, the retirement funds, the investments, and recently, the forensic audit of my marriage. I sat in my leather chair and woke the computer. The screens glowed to life, casting a blue pallor over the room. I could hear muffled voices from the living room, Monica's high-pitched, frantic pleading, and Frank's low, rumbling baritone. He wasn't buying it. Good man. I opened the browser. I didn't go to our joint checking account. She was too smart for that. She knew I monitored that. Instead, I went to a financial aggregation portal I used for wealth management. What Monica didn't realize or had forgotten was that 3 years ago, when we refinanced the house, she had linked all her accounts to this dashboard for the credit check. She had never unlinked them. She assumed because she changed her bank password I couldn't see it, but the API token remained active. It was a ghost account, visible only if you knew where to look. I clicked on her personal savings account, the one she said was for emergency funds and gifts. The transaction history was a roadmap of infidelity. Venmo, Ryan Miller, $1,500. Training session. Venmo, Ryan Miller, $200. Consulting. Venmo, Ryan Miller, $8,500. Yoga mats. Yoga mats, I muttered to myself, must be gold-plated. Then the bigger hits. Marriott downtown, $2,500. The Nook bar, $82.50. Uber, $4,500. 2:00 a.m. And one that made my stomach clench even now. Venmo, Ryan Miller, $500. Rent help. She was paying his rent. My wife, who haggled over the price of cable, was subsidizing the lifestyle of a personal trainer who couldn't afford his own apartment. It was pathetic. It was transactional. I hit print. The laser printer in the corner whirred to life, the sound rhythmic and precise. Chug, chug. Each sheet was a nail in the coffin. I printed the last 6 months. It was a thick stack. I picked up the papers. They were warm. I scanned the top sheet. There was a charge for a men's luxury watch from a boutique downtown. $3,500. I paused. I remembered that watch, the one I found in her car, the one she claimed was a client's. Oh, a client left it in the conference room. I have to return it tomorrow. She bought it for him, with our money, or rather, her money, which was effectively our retirement. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my chest. This wasn't just intimacy. This was theft. This was the dismantling of our future to fund a fantasy. I stood up, squaring the stack of papers on the desk. I looked at a photo on the shelf. Monica and me in Hawaii 10 years ago. We looked happy. I knocked the frame face down, not out of rage, but out of correction. That reality no longer existed. I walked back out to the living room. Monica was sitting on the edge of the sofa, weeping into her hands. Frank was standing by the fireplace, looking at the family portraits on the mantel as if he didn't recognize the people in them. "Monica," I said. She looked up. Her mascara was running. She looked wrecked. "Glenn, please, let's just talk, alone." "We're past talking," I said. I walked over to the coffee table and dropped the stack of papers. It landed with a heavy, authoritative thud. "What is that?" she whispered. "That," I said, pointing to the stack, "is the cost of your consulting with Ryan, including the $500 you sent him for rent last month." Frank spun around. "She's paying his rent?" "Apparently," I said, "and buying him watches." Page 3. Monica stared at the papers as if they were radioactive. She didn't reach for them. She knew exactly what they were. The denial vanished from her face, replaced by a hollow, haunting realization. I had known for a long time, and I had let her hang herself. How? She breathed. I changed my passwords. You're not as smart as you think you are, Monica, I said, and he's not as into you as you think he is. If you have to pay his rent, you're not a girlfriend. You're a sugar mama. That hit her. I saw the flinch. It was cruel, yes, but necessary. I needed to break the delusion. I'm going to bed, I announced. You can sleep in the guest room or go to the Marriott. I don't really care. But if you go to the Marriott, make sure you use your own card. I cut off your access to the joint funds 10 minutes ago. I turned to Frank. Frank, you're welcome to stay in the guest room too, or I can call you an Uber. I'll stay, Frank said, his voice grim. I'm not leaving you with her right now. I nodded. I walked up the stairs, leaving my wife and her father staring at the paper trail of her destruction. I didn't look back. The next morning, the house was silent as a tomb. I woke up early, habit mostly, but also the adrenaline hangover. I didn't check the guest room. I didn't check the couch. I grabbed my keys, a coffee, and drove. I wasn't going to work. I had one loose end to tie up. I pulled up to Ironclad Fitness. It was a small boutique gym in a strip mall, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a vape shop. It had frosted glass windows and a sign that promised total body transformation. I walked in. The smell hit me first. Rubber mats, stale sweat, and disinfectant. A young girl sat at the front desk, scrolling on her phone. She looked about 20, wearing a tank top with the gym's logo. Hi, welcome to Ironclad, she recited without looking up. First class is free for locals. I'm looking for Ryan, I said. I kept my voice pleasant, casual. Ryan Miller? She looked up, popping her gum. He's not in till 10. He's got a personal client thing this morning. I smiled. Right. The consulting gig. She blinked. Yeah. Maybe? Are you a client? No, I said. I leaned on the counter. I'm the husband. The girl froze, her eyes widened. She looked at me, then down at her computer, then back at me. Oh. Oh is right, I said. She lowered her voice, leaning in conspiratorially. Which one? Which one? 2 words, 2 simple words, that vindicated me more than the entire stack of financial records. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. There's more than one? The girl looked panicked now. She realized she'd said too much. I mean, he has a lot of married clients. For training. Just training. Relax, I said. I'm not here to make a scene. I just wanted to drop something off. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the lanyard I had found in Monica's car months ago, the one with his ID. He left this in my wife's car, I said, placing it on the counter. She's been helping him with his taxes. The girl stared at the lanyard. She knew exactly what was going on. Everyone in this gym probably knew. Ryan was the local gigolo, trading biceps and attention for rent money and watches, and my wife was just another customer on the rotation. I'll give it to him, she stammered. You do that, I said, and tell him thanks. He did me a favor, actually. A favor? She asked, confused. Yeah, I said, turning to the door. He showed me exactly what my marriage was worth, about $500 a month. I walked out into the bright morning sunlight. I felt lighter. The anger was still there, but the doubt was gone. Monica wasn't swept away in a passionate romance. She wasn't falling in love with a soulmate. She was being played by a broke personal trainer who had a roster of bored housewives. It was tawdry. It was cliche. And knowing that made it easier to detach. I got back in my car. I didn't drive home immediately. I drove to the bank. I had some accounts to close and a divorce lawyer to call. The emotional part was over. Now, it was just business. I met Frank at a diner halfway between our house and his condo around noon. He looked terrible. His skin was gray, his eyes rimmed with red. He clearly hadn't slept. He was nursing a black coffee as if it were the only thing tethering him to the earth. I slid into the booth opposite him. I placed a manila envelope on the table. Rough night? I asked. Frank nodded slowly. She tried to talk to me this morning, before you woke up, tried to spin it again, said you were abusive, said you drove her to it. And what did you say? I asked, flagging down the waitress. I told her to save it, Frank said, his voice raspy. I told her I saw the papers, Glenn. I saw the payments. You don't pay rent for a friend. You don't buy a $3,000 watch for a consultant. I nodded. I went to his gym this morning. Frank looked up sharply. You didn't, you didn't do anything stupid, did you? No, I just dropped off his ID card, spoke to the receptionist. Turns out I'm not the only husband who might be dropping by. She asked which one. Frank closed his eyes and exhaled a long, shuddering breath. Jesus. Monica. She's... How did she get here? We raised her better than this. It's not on you, Frank, I said gently. People make choices. She chose to be bored. She chose to be, entitled. I tapped the envelope. I printed everything out for you. Not to hurt you, but because she's going to come to you. When I kick her out, and I am going to kick her out, she's going to come to you for money. She's going to need a place to stay. She's going to need a lawyer. Frank looked at the envelope. He looked at me. She's my daughter, Glenn. I can't let her starve. I know, I said, and I'm not asking you to disown her. But I am asking you not to let her lie to you. When she asks for money, know where it's going. If you give her $500, it's going to Ryan. Frank's hand trembled as he reached for the sugar dispenser. She said you were cold. That's what she told me last night. She said you stopped caring years ago. Maybe I did, I admitted. Maybe I retreated into work. But I was working to pay off the house she lives in. I was working to fund the vacation she took. I wasn't out renting hotel rooms. I know, Frank whispered. I know you're the good guy here, Glenn. It hurts. It's shameful. To think my blood acts like this. The betrayal isn't just about me, I said. She used you, Frank. That text, helping Dad with taxes. She used your name, your reputation, your relationship as a cover for her affair. She made you an accomplice without your consent. That's the part I can't forgive. Frank nodded. That was the kill shot. The infidelity was bad, but the exploitation of the father-daughter bond was unforgivable to a man like Frank. I'm sorry, Glenn, Frank said, tears finally spilling over. I'm so sorry. Me too, Frank, I said. Me too. We sat there in silence, two men connected by a woman who had failed us both. The diner bustled around us, clinking plates, laughter, orders being shouted, but in our booth it was awake. We were mourning the death of the Monica we thought we knew. I returned home around 3 p.m. Monica's car was in the driveway. I expected it to be gone, but she was still there, waiting, planning. I walked into the house. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that hurts your ears. I found her in the kitchen. She was sitting at the table, the same table where I had eaten dinner with her father the night before. She had the evidence, the bank statements, spread out in front of her like a tarot reading gone wrong. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were swollen. She looked small. Glenn, she croaked. I didn't answer. I walked past her to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water. I unscrewed the cap and took a long drink. Are you going to ignore me? She asked. Her voice wavered between anger and pleading. I turned and leaned against the counter. I looked at her. I didn't feel rage anymore. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I just felt done. I'm not ignoring you, I said calmly. I'm just waiting for you to leave. This is my house too, she snapped, a flash of her old arrogance returning. Actually, I said, it's not. I bought this house before we got married. Your name isn't on the deed. And given the dissipation of marital assets, that's the legal term for spending our money on your boyfriend, I don't think you're going to have much luck claiming equity. She flinched. He's not my boyfriend. Stop, I said. I held up a hand. Just stop. I went to the gym, Monica. I met the receptionist. Which husband? She asked me. You're a cliche. You're one of a dozen. You're paying for attention. Her face crumbled. The reality of it, the public humiliation, shattered whatever dignity she was trying to cling to. That's not true, she whispered, but she didn't believe it herself. I spoke to Frank, I continued. He knows everything. He has copies of the statements, so don't bother going there and lying about me being abusive. He knows where the money went. She put her head in her hands and sobbed. It was a loud, guttural sound. I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. I was stupid. We can fix this. 18 years, Glenn. You can't just throw away 18 years because of a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, I said, my voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. A mistake is bumping a fender in a parking lot, systematically lying to my face for 6 months, gaslighting me, stealing our money, and using your own father as a shield for your affair. That's not a mistake. That's a character flaw. I walked over to the table and picked up the text printout, the one from last night. Helping Dad with taxes. I placed it in front of her. So, I said, looking down at her. Still helping your dad with taxes? She didn't answer. She couldn't speak. She just cried. I want you gone by tonight, I said. Take what you need for a few days. I'll have the rest sent to wherever you land. But you're not sleeping here. Not in this house. Not in the bed I paid for. Where am I supposed to go? She wailed. I shrugged. I hear the Marriott is nice. Or maybe Ryan has a futon. Since you paid his rent, he technically owes you a night. I walked out of the kitchen, went upstairs, and locked the bedroom door. I put on noise-canceling headphones. I didn't hear her leave. I didn't want to. I just wanted the silence to be real this time. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood hosted its annual spring barbecue. It was a tradition. Burgers, beer, kids running around with sparklers. Usually, Monica and I were the center of it. She organized the salads. I manned the grill. This year, I went alone. I could feel the eyes on me as I walked into the backyard. The rumors had started, as they always do in suburbia, whispers of a separation. A moving truck seen at the house. I grabbed a beer from the cooler and stood by the grill next to Dave, my neighbor. Hey, Glenn, Dave said, flipping a burger. He looked uncomfortable. Where's the better half? I took a sip of beer. The cold liquid felt good. She's not coming, Dave. Oh? Under the weather? Something like that, I said. Just then, Frank walked in. He had been invited years ago and was a staple at these things. He looked better than he had at the diner, but still shaken. He walked straight up to me and clapped a hand on my shoulder. It was a public gesture, a declaration of allegiance. Good to see you, Glenn, Frank said, loud enough for the nearby group to hear. You too, Frank, I said. She called me, Frank murmured, leaning in. She's staying at a motel near the highway. She wanted me to come get her, bring her here, said she wanted to show face. And I told her she wasn't welcome, Frank said grimly. I told her this was for family and friends. She gave up the right to both. I nodded. It was a harsh justice, but it was justice. A woman from the HOA board, Karen, literally her name, sidled up to us. She was the neighborhood gossip monger. She couldn't help herself. Glenn, Frank, so good to see you, but where's Monica? I heard she's been away. The conversation around us quieted. Everyone wanted to know. Was it a sick relative, a work trip, a trial separation? I looked at Karen. I looked at Frank. Frank gave me a subtle nod. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had survived the fire and was now standing in the ashes, holding the matches. She's busy, Karen, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the patio. Oh? Working on a Saturday? You know Monica, I said, taking another casual sip of beer. Always helpful. She's probably helping someone else with their taxes. Frank snorted into his drink. A few of the guys who knew, or suspected, exchanged glances. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with understanding. Karen looked confused. Taxes? But it's April. Isn't tax day over? For some people, I said, staring at the glowing embers of the grill, but for Monica, the audit is just beginning. I turned back to the grill and flipped a burger. The grease flared up, a sudden burst of flame that singed the air. I watched it burn. I was alone, my house was empty, my bank account was dented, but for the first time in 6 months, I wasn't wondering where my wife was. I knew exactly where she was. She was in the past. I took a bite of my burger. It tasted like victory. Complex, slightly charred, but undeniable victory.